Okay, our last speaker tonight, Allan, would you please come up?
Sure.
We all know he's been the mayor of Costa Mesa, elected twice now to his position, his present position. And I've just been dying to ask you, maybe you could share a little bit about why we're raising the minimum wage. I've been a small businessman for 40 years, and having employed people on an hourly wage, maybe you can show me how that's going to benefit my business. And of course, I'm sure you're going to be talking about the illegal driver's license and so forth. Are you hooked up? Are you ready to speak here?
I am.
Thank you.
Ready to go. As to why, well, thank you. Don't you want to hear my comments first before you applaud? You might not like them. Short answer to your question, John, why are they hiking the minimum wage? Because they can and they have the votes. That's the bottom line. You know, I'm going to be very frank tonight. I'm going to try to be relatively brief. Can everybody hear me? Do I need to? How about if I speak up? Can you hear me now? Okay. 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 Well, I want to keep my hands free. Can everybody hear me now if I speak up a little bit? Okay. Well, that's for the camera. That's a separate one. But I'm going to speak up so everyone can hear me. If you can't, let me know. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. You've always been gracious hosts. I'm very grateful for that. Out of curiosity, how many people here are here for the first time? How many people are here for the first time? Okay, three new people. Very good. That's encouraging. I want to encourage you to grow the group in any way you can. Reach out to new people. I think that's one of the things we need to do. I know you've had a couple speakers tonight. I'm the third one, so I'm going to try not to go on too long because that can be quite a bit. But Steve was very gracious in his comments to me, and I appreciate that. I got into politics by accident. I used to work for the Sheriff's Department. I bought a home in Costa Mesa. I lived here most of my life. I grew up here. I went to school here. Worked for the Sheriff's Department for about 16 years. And I was really concerned about things that were going on in my community. There were crime and trash issues, quality of life issues, broken streets, the things that we all want to see in good working order in our communities. And basically, I wasn't getting the results I needed. I became a little more active. I spoke up. I attended a city council meeting or two. I wrote respectful letters and asked that my street could be paved and some of the crime issues could be addressed, but it didn't really seem to change. Well, after time went by, I spoke with a few friends and I said, the only way we can get something done is for one of us to get up on the city council. I said, I'm willing to support one of you guys if you want to run. They said, no, we don't want to run. We want you to run. So I didn't really know anything about campaigning. I literally ordered some material from the internet about grassroots, knocking on doors and talking to people, and that's literally what I did. And I saw Sue in the back there, and she remembers the first time I ran for city council, I knocked on her door. And that's why I'm here tonight, to just have an open door policy and talk about a few things going on in the community. So I got on the city council, got a lot of good stuff done, and eventually ran for state legislature, state assembly, which is where I'm at now. I want to touch on a few things. We all know the bad things. We see it in the paper and on the news. We all get the emails. But I think we need to focus a little more on the solutions. Minimum wage was mentioned. How's that going to affect businesses? Well, all of you that are business owners probably know better than I how that's going to affect you. If you have to pay more, it's going to cost more for goods and services. Those goods and services are going to cost more for the average everyday person. It's going to raise the prices. It's going to hurt the minimum wage recipients probably more than the people who make higher wages. They're going to pay more for the goods and services and not have that much more money to pay for it. I'm not going to dwell on that. It passed. We're outvoted. It's the law. It's happening in our state. AB 1266 was mentioned, that the transgendered restrooms in school where you can use either one. I can tell you how bad that is, how wrong it is. What about the rights of the kids that want their privacy? What about their rights? How do we change that? Well, at this point, it's the law. It was passed by the legislature. Governor signed it.
Total loss of morality.
AB 60, driver's licenses for those that come here illegally. I voted against these bills, by the way. I hope you know that. And I just want to make sure. It's the law, So people say, how are we going to change that? Well, I'm going to hopefully touch on that in a minute, but there are some other implications with that, and I'm not an attorney, but from what I've read, there are various federal laws which you should comply with in terms of housing and employment. And if someone has this driver's license that identifies that they're here illegally, you would be required with that knowledge to comply with federal law. But you might be breaking other state laws that are now in place that deal with non-discrimination of those that have come here illegally. So it kind of puts business owners, property owners in a catch-22. So I encourage you to seek legal advice when dealing with these situations. But it's the law. AB 154 was mentioned, where abortions can be now performed by nurses or nurse practitioners. People will say, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, I voted no, but we're outvoted, on all these issues. I'll give you a couple examples of some good bills that I put forward that were killed. I put forward a very reasonable bipartisan bill passed with bipartisan support out of committee having to do with foster care. Some foster youth came to me in my office in Sacramento and said, hey, there's a lot of abuses. There's some parents and caregivers that are really good foster parents. They include the kids in the family activities. They buy them shoes and clothes and provide for them like they're supposed to because they get state money. They're supposed to use that for the kids, and they do a great job. But there's others that do it just for the paycheck. They get the check from the state. They don't include the kids in the family activities. They don't buy them shoes and clothes and basically pocket the money. So I put forward a bill that said, hey, we should have an evaluation system of the caregivers where the kids in the foster care system can evaluate the people given the care while they're in care or when they get out of the system and say, hey, my needs were provided for. There's a system like that in place in Florida. It works very well. That passed, the bill I put forward passed out of committee with bipartisan support, but it was later killed in appropriations. But we have the other bills, so I guess we didn't need that one. But rehab homes, we all know that's a problem here in our state, in our city. I put forward some reasonable solutions. A state report came out, listed several things we can do to fix a situation with rehab homes in our community. I tried to address it from a quality of care standpoint. People were dying. People were getting the wrong medication, mismedicated or getting medication they weren't supposed to get. Some of the simple solutions, having an assessment or interview by a physician before they enter each different type of facility. Different types of facilities do different things. Make sure they have their medical needs addressed and then get the psychological counseling. But if you put someone into a facility who has medical issues and all they're getting is the peer-to-peer counseling or psychological counseling, that's where the problems happen. And that's where the paramedics are called and police and so forth. And there's impacts to neighborhoods. So anyways, bottom line is the bill didn't have support because the lobby in Sacramento is very powerful. And so basically I started gutting the bill, taking things out. Well, we don't like this, we don't like that. Okay, I'll take this out, I'll take that out. I was left basically with a shell of a bill that just clarified the death investigation policy, which directly, more clearly stated who was responsible for what when a death occurs. Very simple cleanup measure, and even that was killed. So even minimal changes, the bill was killed. So even when I put bills forward that are bipartisan, even those get killed. But anyways, so where do we go from here? I mean, we can all talk about the bad. How do we get involved? Well, as Steve Mensinger mentioned, you're taking the first step. You're here tonight. I want to encourage you to get involved in a campaign, get to know the candidates, ask questions early on. If you get to know a candidate in the campaign, they're going to be more accountable to you later on. Once someone gets elected, if they've never met you, they're less likely, I think, to want to talk with you. But you get to know them early on, the early stages when there's city council and legislature, Congress, you have a relationship with them. And that increases accountability. When you attend meetings like this, it increases accountability. Get involved in other campaigns besides city council if you can, a state legislative race, make a contribution or write a letter. You know, whatever your thing is, there's, you know, it's not the same for everybody. There's many different ways to be involved, but I would encourage you to get involved somehow. We have a new state party chair, Jim Brulte. He's doing a great job. Our state party is now debt-free. He's been doing a great job raising money and paying down our debt, and there's been some good donors that have stepped up. So we're more solvent, or we are solvent. I guess we weren't doing well before with all the debt that we had. But bottom line is our state party is in a better position right now. They are focusing on a couple key races. A couple of them are here in Orange County. There's a Senate race in Orange County that's going to be crucial to taking, if we win that, we help take away the 2/3 majority they have in the Senate. There's 2 seats, one in Orange County and one up by Lancaster, that we lost, that we should not have lost at the last election, where Democrats hold the seats that Republicans held in the past. We need to retake those seats. So we need people to phone bank, we need people to walk precincts, we need people to contribute, we need people who are involved. There's some other states, or excuse me, some other races in other parts of the state where we can actually take a seat that a Democrat now holds. And we're going to try to do that too as well. I would encourage you to get involved and get on the email list of our state party. You know, our state chair, Jim Brulte, tells the story better than I do in terms of how the party was functioning before and how it's functioning now. But I would encourage you to contact him and see how you can get involved. Maybe some of you want to run for office. I know Steve jokingly said, you know, and I know how he meant it because I'm in public office. He said, you know, he doesn't, you know, if he gets unelected, it's, you know, that's, you accept it. I've never worried about being reelected. I've always tried to do what I felt is right. Yes, I did serve on the city council. Yes, I am in the state legislature. I am up for reelection if I want to run for 2 more years in the state assembly. I've never felt this is something I have to do. I do it because I want to make a difference. But I understand what Steve's saying. If you ever lose an election, that's just the way it is. But I think that what he's trying to say is he's here to make a difference. At the end of the day, I want to make a difference. I wanted my streets fixed, and I wanted crime to go down. I wanted a good quality of life. I wanted accountability on fiscal issues. So a lot of people have been asking me what I'm going to do. Some of you that may get my email have heard me say that I'm looking at possibly running for county supervisor. And I am looking at that. It's not an easy decision. I could run for re-election to state assembly. It would be a relatively easy re-election for me to serve 2 more years up there in the legislature. The other option is to run for county supervisor. John Morlock is termed out, and so there's an opening. There's an open seat. The reason I am considering running is that the other person that's coming on the strongest for that race moved here in the relatively recent past from Los Angeles, and I'm told wants to use that as a springboard for higher office for Congress or something. And you know, that's a question for that person. But I think that's the wrong reason. I want someone to represent us who's been a part of our community for a long time. I've grown up here. I've worked here, went to school here, worked for the Sheriff's Department, was on the City Council for 8 years. I've represented about 60% of the supervisorial district already, if you count my time on the Costa Mesa City Council, my time in the legislature prior to redistricting, and the district I represent now. I've represented about 60% of that district. So I know the issues, I know the people. I know I can be very effective at the local level. Just to give you the history, my time on the City Council, I was very outspoken respectfully on the issue of illegal immigration. Both of my parents immigrated to this country legally. My dad came from Egypt, my mother came from Sweden. I'm very grateful for the sacrifices that they've made. But I knew from my time and experience with the Sheriff's Department that many people that were arrested and ended up in jail that were here illegally were being released. And I felt that was inappropriate for a burglar, a robber, a sex offender, drug crimes, weapons charges, people that were being arrested for these things being released. And I knew that the people in Costa Mesa, when they were arrested, weren't all being screened. And I felt, from a public safety standpoint, that issue should be addressed. When I put forward a proposal, I took a lot of heat for it. That's an understatement. But we had about, I think the number was about 1,300 criminals removed in the life of that program who were here illegally and committed crimes. That made our community safe. It was very effective, and it made our community safer, and I was able to do it at the local level. I also took on the public employee unions, and that brought on the wrath of the unions against me, quite frankly, when I ran for re-election. But I didn't like my union dues going to political purposes that I disagreed with. And I supported a campaign to make sure that union dues did not go to purposes that the person didn't believe in. And during that campaign, we used a quote from Thomas Jefferson. And he said, "To compel a man to furnish funds for the propagation of ideas he disbelieves and abhors is sinful and tyrannical. Why should I take your money without your permission and use it for a political purpose that you disagree with?" And the answer is, I shouldn't do it. Yet that's what the unions do. And so I was one of the signers on the ballot initiative, Prop 75, and as a result of that and the other issues I'd taken on and being outspoken for reforms, pension reform, and Steve Mensinger and Jim Righeimer are doing a great job trying to address the issue of pension reform. But due to the issues I had taken on, when I ran for re-election to City Council, they spent about $300,000 in independent expenditures against me just for a City Council re-election race. That is unheard of. They spent several $100,000 to keep me from getting elected to the state legislature. When I ran for re-election, they thought because redistricting had taken place that I'd be vulnerable politically. But you guys all came through for me, even though they spent several $100,000, close to $1 million in independent expenditures against me. That's what happens when you take on the tough issues. But the point I'm trying to make is that I've been through the fire, I've been effective at the local level, and I know I can do a great job should I choose to run for county supervisor. My opponent will be well funded. Every race I've ever run, I've been outspent. I don't have to match her dollar for dollar, and it's not about money. It's about you, the voters, and who you want to represent you. And should I choose to do that, I will let you know in the relatively near future, and if I do, I'm asking for your support. You guys have been there for me in the past. I'm very grateful. I'm very humbled. I want to thank you for it, and I want to let each and every one of you know my door is always open to each and every one of you. And one other thing I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. I just got married 2 months ago. My beautiful wife is in the back. And I put her through a couple campaigns, and she stuck with me, and she hasn't, she's a fighter. So, but anyways, I want to thank you for the time you've given to me tonight. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. Yes.
Concerning the two bills, that they never got out of committee, do the Democrats say to themselves, gee, these are good bills, we ought to kill Allan Mansoor's bill and then have a Democrat pass this bill the next session? Is that the way it works?
Well, I don't want to speculate on what everyone's reasons and motives were. Basically, they passed out of I got bipartisan support, and I think it was I'm trying to remember the committee. There's a couple thousand bills every year, but they got bipartisan support in the committee, but then when they went to appropriations, which is a fiscal committee, they said, they voted no. So it didn't make it to the assembly floor, and everybody's got their own reasons. If a Democrat had these bills, would they have passed? Quite possibly. They may have. Any other questions? Yes.
I just would like to make a comment. it would be very sad to lose you in the state legislature. But I can certainly understand, you know, you're beating your head against a brick wall up there.
Yeah.
And it must get tiring after a while. We certainly would welcome you as our county
I was gonna say, you have a state office now, why would you wanna go back to the county?
Well, let me address kind of both of those. I don't look at it as, you know, a step down or a step back. It's an opportunity to serve. It's an opportunity to be effective. Quite frankly, my reasoning though is I truly want someone from the district to represent us. I don't like it when someone moves in just to run for office. That's political opportunism. I don't like. I want someone from the district. So that would be my reasoning. But I also tried to lay down the reasons why I could be effective, and I have a track record. I have a history in Costa Mesa. I know the issues. I know the people. I've represented a good number of the other cities as well. So yeah, I could go there for 2 more years, and I could vote no. It's, you know, we will. There are other good people who can run. But even so, even if I go back up there, with the point I'm really trying to emphasize to everyone, we need to retake seats. We have a saying on the city council, how do you get something done? I mean, if there's 5 people, the saying is you need to be able to count to 3. If you don't have 3 votes, you don't have it. It's that simple. We don't have the votes in Sacramento. How do you change that? When I first got on the city council, I did not have the votes to do everything I needed to do and wanted to do. I worked very hard. 2 years later, we got Eric Beaver elected. Worked very hard. We got others elected. I talked to Steve and Jim. We got them on there. We changed the dynamics. We worked hard through grassroots efforts, knocking on doors, talking to people like you and saying, hey, this is what we want to do. And we brought the people on board and we said, this is what we're going to do. And we did it. And we need to reach out city by city, person by person, city by city, if we're going to fix our state. And before I forget, I want to make sure everybody knows my 2 staff members that are here, Scott in the back and Jose in the back here. So if we can ever be of assistance, me or anyone in my staff, please let us know. Yes, sir.
Allan, we're never going to change this state unless we can change Sacramento. And just like the Tea Party to me is the only way we're going to do that. And I went online looking for different tea parties. I've been to the Surf City Tea Party because I'm in Huntington Beach. I read a little bit about what the Newport Mesa is. Seems to be a much more active organization. The one thing that the Tea Party from Surf City said is that we are trying to organize the tea parties into one giant organization to vote the same way. We have to do that, otherwise we will never take over Sacramento. We'll never elect more people like you. We can't afford to lose you there because that's another seat that a Democrat may win. We need to work hard to get more seats taken. And I honestly believe that right now, the way the country is going with Obamacare and this debt limit and stuff that they're starting to do, I think you're going to find more and more Americans joining tea parties. That's what Fox News said today. There's much more people joining tea parties. And I think now is the time for the tea parties to really rise like they did in 2010 and work hard to take over Sacramento. Because if we can't take over Sacramento, this state is done.
I appreciate that. I really do. First of all, a Democrat is not going to win this seat. Plenty of Republicans will be running. A Democrat is simply not going to have the votes to win the seat in this district. But in my opinion, the way, yeah, you have to change Sacramento, but the way to do that is one person at a time, is one city at a time. We need to also rebuild our city councils, not just in Costa Mesa, other cities. And again, the party chair is more the appropriate person. Maybe you want to invite him to come speak sometime. He's the more, he could clearly, you know, lay out his plans in terms of getting people to run for city council in cities that you think maybe it wouldn't win, but we can't let those seats go unchallenged. So we need volunteers. We need people who want to run for office. We need people who want to get more active in their government or sit on a planning commission or take some type of active role.
And that's
Yeah, but I want to get everyone a chance. Sorry, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure everyone has a chance. Yes.
Quick question for you. You've run a lot of different campaigns up against a lot of union money against you. We came up against that last year when we tried to pass a charter. And you touched on a subject that our charter would have helped us overcome, which was, you know, the union funding the union through their members without their really say in the matter. Our city payroll department actually withholds the union dues and pays that directly to the union. We would have been able to forego that had the charter passed. Now, the charter came up against $800,000+ in union money to defeat it. How do you, as somebody that has successfully run against money like that, what is your strategy?
One person at a time. You've got to talk with people respectfully. You've got to talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors, and you've got to be informed on the issues, and you've got to talk to them respectfully. You know, these are tough issues. They can become heated issues. I don't think it's an overnight fix. I don't think it's a just a one conversation. You've got to build relationships with people. Talk with your local police and firefighters that live in the city. Get to know them. Engage respectfully. Talk to your neighbors that you may disagree with a little bit. Build a friendship, a relationship. You know, maybe we need more neighborhood barbecues. There's plenty of opportunities where we have to create opportunities to get to know each other, to work better together. The reason I asked, you know, how many people are new here tonight, we can't just keep talking to ourselves. We got to invite new people. Maybe they won't come here, but they may talk to you if your neighbor's with them. It's a process. When I first ran for city council, you know, it was a process of knocking on doors, talking to people, getting to know people, letting them get to know me, having an open door policy. You know, I'm not a strategist. I'm not a professional strategist on how to win an election. I just try to call it like it is. But we could talk more in detail. Happy to. Yes.
The prior gentleman was talking about uniting tea parties. Not to plug this Tim Donnelly event, but I will do a shameless plug. Tom Paulette over here, Mr. Sales Opportunity, has started Unite OC. It's a new nonprofit. This is our inaugural event where we are getting all
and I appreciate that. I don't mind you coming in and want to tell everyone, or if Tom wants to do that. I want to see if there's any more questions for me, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much to all of you for your time. Thank you so much.